Today's candidate interview is sponsored by Rural Leavenworth, Inc. As a reminder, the election is November 8th. Registration for voting ends October 18th. So if you're not registered or you've changed your name or address, register at the courthouse or ksvotes.org. Early voting starts October 19th at the courthouse. On November 2nd, early voting at the Baser United Methodist Church from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on November 3rd at the Tonganoxie VFW from noon to 6 p.m. My name is Sherri Grogan with the Rural Leavenworth, Inc., a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization supporting rural citizens in Leavenworth County. I'm here with Commissioner Mike Stieben, who is running for Board of County Commissioners District 5. Mike will be introducing himself and answering a few questions for voters. Thanks for taking the time today, Mr. Stieben, and please proceed with your introduction.
Well, Sherri, thank you. And we really appreciate the opportunity to speak to the folks at Rural Leavenworth, Inc. and other people on the social media platforms. And I just want to say I really appreciate all the things you've done for the community, and I appreciate the things that these groups have done to stand up for property rights and the cleanup and different things that's been done in the community. I really appreciate that. I have been commissioner since 2019. We had a special election. The commission was expanded in 2016 from a three-person board to a 5-person board of county commissioners by vote of the people. I then went to what they call a convention of the Republican Party, and I was nominated. And then I competed against three other gentlemen in that election, and I was elected first in March of 2019. I then was reelected, and then I'm now up for election. If I do win this time, I'll have a 4-year term. I am a resident of Leavenworth County since 1999. I'm a locomotive engineer with BNSF, and I have 4 children. But my wife and I now, between the two of us, have 6 children, and we live west of Tonganoxie. It has been a real privilege and honor to be able to serve in the capacity of county commissioner. I've really enjoyed it. I feel like I've been able to help a lot of people with a lot of things. That's the most enjoyable part of the job that I have, is to serve and help people. And that's what I intend to continue to do if I am reelected. I know that this is not my seat, it is the people's seat. And I know that the people will be making the decision, and I hope that I can show that we've done a lot of positive things for our community. And that's what I'm hopeful of. I have a master's degree in history from Bethel College, and I have been involved in the political process and many times served as the poll watching chairman for the Republican Party. We did poll watching, and many different aspects of that is how I sort of became interested in political issues. And then when this came up, I talked to the railroad, and they said that I talked to the government affairs folks at BNSF, and they said, sure, we like to have people involved in government service. And so I've been able to integrate that in and work my schedule with the commission and the railroad. But and I think it's important to have a few working people on the commission, not just retired people. I think it's important to have people that are directly connected, directly impacted when these taxes are raised. We're directly impacted by that. So that's kind of my background, and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Okay, on to the questions. The Planning Commission makes recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on special use permits, zoning, and regulation changes. What is your understanding of the purpose of special use permits and traffic impact fees?
Okay, the county, Leavenworth County is zoned. We're a zoned county since the 60s. And zoning is designed to basically control and guide development.
Mhm.
And one of the things when you look at the zoning map of Leavenworth County is you'll find the eastern part of the county is primarily zoned 2.5, and the western part of the county is primarily zoned 5.0 as far as the rural area. But as far as the overall zoning, we have what's called the comprehensive land use plan that guides us in our zoning decisions that are made. And one of the things that this plan was updated in October of 2020. And one of the pieces of that is to kind of guide the development in the county to sort of a reverse L from Leavenworth to Lansing to Basehor and then across to Tonganoxie. The development is encouraged to locate near the urban areas where the services are, like the sewer, electricity, all that. So your higher density construction and building is encouraged under the comprehensive plan in that area. And then as you move out in the county, we basically have tried to focus on encouraging that development to stay in the urban area. If you locate out of that area, little less incentives under the comprehensive plan for that to happen. And what was the second part of your question?
Special use permits and traffic impact fees.
Okay, so that's basically zoning, how the county's zoned. A special use permit is a conditional exception to zoning.
Mhm.
So out in the county, it's zoned residential 2.5 or residential 5.0. When you have a special use permit, you're making an exception to that. And the exception is that we see that this small business that you have out in the county, like a cabinet shop or a small engine repair shop or daycare, we see that that's actually the planning commission and the county commission is saying, we think that's enough of a value to the community and to the county to make an exception to those zoning rules. So we carve out what they call a special use permit, and that special use permit comes with conditions. And those conditions are designed to make it so you don't overly impact your neighbors, and you have to explain how many cars and what the impact is going to be on the community in that area. But when those special use permit decisions are made, they're made very similar to a zoning decision. And when we make our zoning decisions in the county, the zoning decisions are based on some factors. And the factors are character of the neighborhood, zoning and use of nearby property, suitability of the property for the uses to which it has been restricted, extent to which removal of the restrictions will detrimentally affect nearby property, the length of time the property has been vacant or as zoned, the relative gain to economic development, public health, safety and welfare, and the conformance to the comprehensive plan. Those 7 rules are what they call the golden rules, which came from a court decision that was made in Johnson County many years ago. And that's how we make these decisions on all zoning, but specifically on the special use permits. That's how decisions are made. So basically, we're making an exception so that you can have your business out in the county when we do a special use permit. And then what was the follow-up on that?
What changes, if any, do you think need to be made to the process?
Well, that's interestingly enough, today at the county commission meeting, we discussed actually making some changes, whether there needed to be changes. And I think the focus of a change would be on a large entity special use permit as opposed to a small, like a daycare or a cabinet shop. It is where we have a special use permit that allows a large business, like say your Call Valley or which is the sand pit down in the south part of the county, or your flatlands up in the north part of the county. We're finding that when we've issued these large SUPs in the past, and many times this predates all the commissioners sometimes of these special use permits. And when it's a large special use permit, we find that it's very difficult to put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's like it's not going to go away, and we're kind of looking at what needs to be evaluated in terms of if we move forward with doing these special use permits for large entities. We have made a change since the Call Valley sandpit issue came up. Prior to that, the county paid for all the engineering and road studies And now we have made the change to where the large developer that's proposing the large SUP, they have to pay for their own engineering studies and impact studies.
Okay, did you have anything to add on traffic impact fees?
Yeah, the one thing about the traffic impact fees, many times when these SUPs were applied for in the past, there would be a traffic impact fee, and there's a document that you fill out, and then you say basically, well, my cabinet shop or my small engine repair shop or my winery or my event center is going to have X number of cars. Say you say 200 cars per weekend. Then there was a formula that would be plugged in and would result in your traffic impact fee. That was formally required. That policy has been changed. The new policy, there's now a new policy in effect, and you don't have to pay that impact fee up front. You pay a fee of $400. And then if during the application process it's determined that a traffic or road study will be needed to determine what improvements may need to be made, then that's required before you start operation of your business or event center or whatever's covered by the SUP. So you're sort of in a period here where that old policy has gone away, and now we go with a policy that is whatever the direct impact is, that's what you pay for.
Okay, thanks. The comprehensive plan, land use map, and zoning regulations work together to direct growth in the county. Do you believe it's important to preserve the rural character of Leavenworth County? And if so, how do you propose we pursue that goal?
Well, I definitely do, and that's one of the things that it's such a balance. You have to development and maintaining the rural character, and we want to have development that does both, and that's kind of the focus. But one of the things I submitted and proposed to the Planning Commission was a policy that, in addition to these golden rule factors, that we would add a provision that says where there's large agricultural tracts in the county, that we add another factor to the consideration, and that factor would be the fact that they're preserving those large agricultural tracts may be of value. And that would be something for the Planning Commission to at least consider that along with the other factors. So, and I did submit that to them, and they have not acted on it at this point, but I do think that's important. I think that's each zoning decision is made independently, and it's important to me and to all the commissioners. But I do not automatically support every zoning change, but I also am not blind to the fact that every person that owns a piece of property has certain property rights, and I think we have to defend those property rights, and so there's a real balance here.
What changes, if any, do you think are needed to the guidelines, meaning the comp plan, land use map, or the zoning regulations?
Well, like I said, I thought that should be added to it. We do review the comprehensive plan every year, and I think I've tried to be conscious of putting members on the Planning Commission that represent me. Each commissioner appoints two, and I've tried to put commissioners on, and I've visited with them about being careful in consideration of the issues of maintaining our rural character. But we're going to listen every year to what the changes need to be made and review it. And that's something that wasn't done in the past. It was, I believe the last one was done in 2012, and then they updated it in 2020, and they hadn't kept it up to date. And one thing the commissioners have tried to look at is maintaining that comprehensive plan as an up-to-date document.
Leavenworth County has several pending controversial special use permits, including Caw Valley Sand Quarry and Flatlands Excavating. What is your position on these subs?
Well, I've got to be very careful here a little bit because these are in litigation, so I can't address specifically, but I'll address in general. When I look at these issues, I look at these factors, and certainly with Caw Valley, I've looked at the fact that the character of the neighborhood is going to be impacted dramatically. And whether that area is zoned industrial or not, it's grown up in effect as $500,000 to $750,000 homes surrounding the area. And then you're going to put 110 trucks a day on the roads and impact the roads. And I've been very much of the thought process that that is not a good location for that industry, right in the middle of that residential area. However, we don't make decisions based on our personal views or the views of constituents. We make the decisions based on what the law is. And certainly that character of neighborhood is one of the factors that we're allowed to consider. The flatlands issue is live, and I can tell you this, anybody that's watching, I would encourage you to contact your state legislator, your state representative, your state senator. I am very disappointed in KDHE. I feel like they are not doing their job because the county government can only do so much in the regulation of an industry like that. It is the responsibility of the state of Kansas, the administration, and the folks in Topeka that do environmental regulation. You need to contact your legislators. You need to talk to people and get KDHE to take action down there, because if they don't take a stand, it's going to affect what the county can do.
Okay. Economic growth is important to reducing the tax burden on residential homeowners. What do you think should be done to increase economic development in the county?
Well, and I'll come to that, but I'll just mention that when I ran for office, the first, and I've been at 3 elections, and the 3 top issues, I've had this on my flyer every time, and lowering property taxes, economic development, and transparency and efficiency. This hasn't changed since 2019. And I'll read you what it says on economic development. Creating an environment that attracts small businesses and new industry to the area without changing the culture of Southern Leavenworth County. And now I have to say, whenever I have Southern Leavenworth County on my documents, I have to say Southern and Western Leavenworth County, because we have Springdale Alexandria Township is in my area. And so my district is basically Southern and Western. So I don't want to forget those folks. But we want to have economic development, and we want to have bringing in jobs that are clean and jobs that are high paying. And I've been encouraged by the location of the Hills Pet Nutrition, and it's going to be good paying jobs in Tonganoxie. And I'm very supportive of that. I did, when I was elected, I said I was not in favor of Tyson coming into our community because I didn't think those were the kind of jobs that would benefit the community long term. I think those are the kind of, I think that would have required a lot more services and less growth as far as economic growth. So when you're talking about economic development, the county has, historically, we have the LCDC, which is the Leavenworth County Development Corporation, that goes out, recruits businesses, tries to bring businesses in, and they have historically received county funds. Then there's the Leavenworth County Port Authority, and they have representatives from each, and within the last 3 years, we've changed their bylaws so that each city is represented in the county, and the Port Authority now has a new bylaws that they go by, and part of that change was to make them more accountable to all the cities and the county. And what we also changed in economic development is we don't any longer, LCDC is actually a nonprofit corporation, and we felt like it's probably not appropriate to be directly funding a nonprofit corporation, but we'll go ahead and funnel all of our funds through the Port Authority. And then when the LCDC, as a private corporation, wants to come up with a project or has needs, they make their application to the Port Authority, which is a representative body of all the communities, and they make the distribution of the monies, and the monies represent all the monies that come from each city, Leavenworth, the county, and each city that within the county that funds the Port Authority as well. When we started looking at economic development, we were concerned partially about some of the accountability. And one of the pieces of the accountability is when we talk about land use, we have this comprehensive plan where we know, like I said, that we want the development to be in this reverse L, like I said on the comprehensive plan. But on development for economic development, we didn't have any kind of a plan. So we had requested, can you develop like a comprehensive plan or an economic development strategy that the county can follow when it comes to economic development efforts? And we were just having a hard time seeing that happen. And so what we did was we had a task force on economic development that was put together, and Commissioner Michael Smith and myself served on the task force along with members of the LCDC and the Port Authority, and we all, and some of the cities were represented, and we tried to come to a conclusion on, how are we going to get to the point where everybody in Leavenworth County, as far as government, is pulling in the same direction, the cities and the county. And a lot of times we had seen that wasn't happening in the past. And sometimes it comes out certainly in transportation issues. So you'd have one city saying, we want this project for transportation development or a highway. And another city would say, no, we want a turnpike entrance. So what would happen is when they went to KDOT for funding is you'd have these desperate requests. And then because you're not on the same page, money goes to Johnson County or money goes elsewhere in the state. So what we put together with this economic development package was that we are going to develop the comprehensive plan on economic development. And the first piece of that has been developed. Part of this was when this happened, we hired Tom Cole as the economic development officer for the county. And what we did, we didn't increase the funding. We actually took funding away from the other two entities, $160,000, and we funneled that over to have our own office. And one of the parts of that is we wanted accountability so that the county will be able to hold the other entities accountable. And the second piece of that is we wanted Tom to write this economic development plan for the county. And he started on that. He's written an incentive policy. I know one of your questions or a question I heard was about tax abatements and those kind of things, but we've written a policy now for the county on tax abatements, and I can discuss that with you. But part of once we got everybody on the same page, the first thing we did is we started a regional transportation study, and KDOT put in 150,000. Leavenworth County's put in I can't cite the exact amount, but in about 150,000 as well. And the city of Leavenworth, I think, is around 100,000. But all the communities have joined together with this regional comprehensive transportation study that will be part of all this economic development plan as it comes together. And he's still writing the plan right now. He's only been on less than a year. But as they are doing this regional transportation study, what they're going to do is they're going to we've got a lot of studies that have been done on road projects in the county in the past, and they're just sitting on the shelf. And what they're going to do is take these projects, put them together, and prioritize those projects. And we want to prioritize each project at different levels. And one of the projects, there's different levels, but mega project level is like a bridge over the Missouri River. That's a mega project. And there's certain funding, like on ARPA funds, that funds mega projects. So we want to have a mega project that Leavenworth County wants, and that's our bridge. But then other projects are road projects, and we want to all be on the same page, working as one single engine and unit together to request those funds from KDOT. So that's part of the economic development. But this economic development issue is ongoing, and I'm excited about it. I call it enhanced economic development. And I did post an article on Facebook about it. So if you're on Facebook, read that article, and I'd be happy to listen if you want to call me and comment on it. But we are definitely interested in bringing good, high-paying jobs and jobs that respect our culture.
You spoke to this a little bit, but where do you think economic development should occur?
Well, I think that's going to be partially dictated by what Tom and what the study calls for. So I don't want to like second guess that study, but he's working on that. But I think personally, I think probably it's going to trace along where we have the services, kind of like the comprehensive land use plan. You're going to kind of see the economic development push towards the cities where there's infrastructure. I think that's going to be the emphasis of the plan. I haven't. We don't have the plan yet, but I think that would be the focus of it.
Do you support tax incentives and abatements to lure businesses to the county?
Well, I will say I've been on the commission for 3.5 years, and the Leavenworth County Commission, since I've been on the commission, has not once, ever adopted an abatement on any industry coming in. We have adopted a policy. So if there was some fantastic business opportunity or some fantastic growth opportunity for the county, we have a policy now in place, and that we didn't have it before, but now we've got this economic development director. He's drafted that and we've adopted it, and we have a policy to implement that if we needed to, but we would be very cautious. I don't like giving 100% economic abatements. But I think it's on the table if there was a large business to come in. I do think one thing people don't understand about tax abatement, and I've addressed this with Hills, is while you're abating the county and the city taxes and the local taxes, when like a Hills goes online, the 20 mills that goes to public education is not abatable under Kansas law. So as soon as Hills goes online, it will directly benefit public education right there in Tonganoxie immediately. It won't be abated for 10 years. So that's something I don't know if folks realize. But like I said, the county's not been involved. I know the cities are more directly involved, and Tonganoxie did, I believe, abate the taxes for 10 years.
One of the wealthiest urban areas in the county is Fort Leavenworth. It has a tax-free, self-contained market for residents from gasoline, alcoholic beverages, and consumer goods. What steps, if any, should the Board of County Commissioners take to further integrate Fort Leavenworth into the Leavenworth County economy?
Well, Commissioner Cause and myself went to Washington, D.C. to talk about pilots, which pilot means payment in lieu of taxes. And we were directly asking the Department of Defense and folks, what could we be eligible for? And we and I don't have, unfortunately, pilots don't seem to be available for Department of the Army installations. Department of Interior installations are more accessible, but we don't seem to be eligible for pilots. And the state of Kansas has a very lucrative law as far as military installations. And when I say lucrative for the military, allowing them not to pay these things. So because the thought process is maintaining Fort Leavenworth here is a good thing, maintaining Fort Riley is a good thing. So the law is very wide. It's kind of a let's keep these installations in Kansas type of a law. And but if we can, I'm open to any suggestions but we have looked into this, and at this time, I don't see ability to get a pilot.
Okay. Increasing property valuations and taxes are a concern to citizens. What do you think should be done to address the concerns or make the county government more efficient?
Well, we've done several things to that effect. And one of the things we've tried to do is to cut the costs and cut regulations. And when we go back to the SUP process, the SUPs used to be requiring folks to come back either every 5 years or every 10 years to go through the bureaucracy and reapply to have an SUP established again. Even if there was no change, even if it was the same business, even if it had been going for 50 years, you still had to keep coming back. And that was a cost. So what we've done is we've streamlined that and cut that regulation, and it said, as long as there's no change in your SUP, you don't have to continue to come back. You're never going to be required to come back as long as there's no change or complaint or anything to that extent. We're always looking for ways to reduce expenditures. And as far as taxes, I think what folks sometimes don't realize is they look at the county taxes and they get their bill for property taxes and they think, oh my goodness, the county did this or the county, and they're not taking quite into effect or into consideration the fact that if you have $1 and that represents your property tax dollar, that the county portion of that is only about 25 cents. Some, depending on what school district you're in, sometimes it's 29 cents, sometimes it's 24 cents. But the majority of the tax for property taxes is in other government entities, including the school district, cities, townships, all. So your county portion of the tax, although you see your tax going up, is only X percent. And the fact is we have reduced by more than 1 mil, which is more than $1 million. 1 mil this year is $927,000. And we reduced 3/4 mil this year, but we over the last 3.5 years, we've reduced it by over $1.25 million for folks that live in the cities, and a little less for people that live out in the county. But that amount represents what the county portion is. But if your school district raised your taxes and we cut your taxes a little, our portion of the tax is only 25 cents and their portion is more like 40 cents. So when you get your tax bill, oh my goodness, my taxes went up. That's one factor. The second factor is the way Kansas does property taxes. And we base it on comparable sales. So over the last 3 years, certainly since the pandemic, people have been moving in from Johnson County and Douglas County, and they've been paying full price for homes, or even more than full price. Sometimes bidding wars go into effect. And then that increases the comparable housing units that your house is compared against. And then your property taxes go up because the value of your house went up. It's not necessarily because of the tax. So there's a lot of factor with property taxes. There's one thing that I did write an article on, and this is something I really want to show your, I don't know if that can even show up, maybe not. But anyway, it's a headline article I wrote, and it says the legislature must reform property taxes in Kansas. And that was in the paper. And I think that is critical. We need our state legislators in Topeka to end this open system where we're ending up with 27% in Linwood in 1 year, your property taxes jumping. I think it should be, and there's a number of different proposals, but it could be rate of inflation plus 1%, and then your commission can decide on the percent, and then it's capped off. And then if that doesn't keep up with your market value, then when you convey your property, then it catches up. There's a lot of ideas like that, but what we're doing right now, in my opinion, is we're driving our senior citizens and folks out of their homes. And it really bothers me when I have folks calling me and saying, "You got to do something. You got to do something." And I'm the county commissioner. I'm the lowest rung on the ladder to do something, but I do tell you, we're doing our best to at least raise the flag and try to get the legislators to look at this. And I've had several of them say they're going to. And I know it's been mentioned again and again and again, the LAVTR funding from the state, which is supposed to be, at one point they had a compromise that they were going to increase taxes a certain amount. And part of the compromise was they would fund property tax relief. And I believe they funded it for 3 years, or I don't remember how many years, not very long. And it's been something that's on the table that they could. And we have passed a resolution in Leavenworth County that if we get that money back, everything from that would go to property tax relief. So that's one issue, but there's all of this issues with property taxes are driven on multiple levels.
What oversight does or should the Board of County Commissioners have over the collection rate or use of school district taxes?
Well, by statute, we have none. We have, I don't, honestly, do we want to take that on? I don't think so. I think it would be really hard.
Should rural residents face an increased assessment if a chip and seal or paved road is built adjacent to their property?
Well, if you participate in the participatory road program right now, where neighbors get together and have the road, and we're mostly not doing chip and seal now. We're mostly doing asphalting. It's a different asphalting process, but it's not quite as deep, but it lasts a lot longer. So we're mostly doing asphalting on the road improvements, even on what used to be chip and seal. But one thing I will say is we still pave a certain amount of miles of road where the neighbors get together and they say we want to pay a certain amount per square foot to have our road paved, and you have several neighbors get together, and even up to several miles have been paved every year. So that is something that's available. We don't do that with dust abatement roads. Those are supposed to now be on based on traffic counts.
What do you think needs to be done to improve traffic flow, safety, and quality of county roads and bridges? How should the improvements be prioritized?
Well, there's been several on the road issue. I'm happy with some of the things we've done. When I first got on the commission, we wrote a letter addressing, there were 3 critical areas that had, I guess we would call it accident prone areas. One was on Tonganoxie Road between Tongi and Leavenworth. One was there on 158th Street, where there have been multiple accidents, even some fatalities. And then one was down on Golden Road. And so those were prioritized. And I'm happy to report that 158th Street is getting improved with turning lanes, and they're widening it and putting shoulders on the road. So hopefully we won't have near as many accidents there. Same thing with Tonganoxie Road, that's being improved. Shoulders are being widened, and we're working towards the goal of that's directly improving safety. And those projects, might add, the 158th Street project was funded with what they call the Kansas Cost Share Program. And it's a complete road reconstruction, which includes widening shoulders and expanding turning lanes at K32. The Tonganoxie Road improvements are 90% KDOT funded, approximately $2 million. And the county is responsible for 10%, which is $200,000 approximately. And that's funded through what they call the High Risk Rural Road Program. And those grants have assisted us. And I have to give credit to Bill Knoll, who's our Public Works Director. He's done a really good job of applying for those grants, and he's a good grant writer. Yeah. And doing those being a good grant writer is a critical thing nowadays. And we found that really helps. But we also got major grant projects for 155th Street. The county's putting in $2 million towards that project, and Baser's putting $7 million in. And you're getting a really nice improvements here in Baser, and then eventually we're going to turn that road over to maintenance for the city instead of the county. So those are a few of the areas. What was the rest of the question?
Well, how should the improvements be prioritized? Do you have any additional comments about that?
I guess the priority is from those 3 projects is where we had the highest risk assessments, and making the roads safer. Another project, when I first got on the commission at K32 and 158, we asked that there be a traffic light study to see if we could put a traffic light in there. And KDOT came back and they did their study, and they said it doesn't call for a traffic light, but we'll put a beacon light. If you've been out there, you've probably seen the beacon light. But they also said they will prioritize leveling the hill. So because it's in the study, they are going to be on the hook to level the hill, and we're pushing now for them to go ahead and fund leveling that hill. That will make a lot of safety there. And then another place is at Helen's Hilltop west of Tonganoxie. They're going to be leveling that hill. So lots of road projects going on, and we've made a lot of road improvements. In fact, when I go just to dust abatement, we have funded $7 million worth of dust abatement, what they call phases. 8 phases of dust abatement, which is paved in place roads out in the county. And of that $7 million, $4 million of that's been spent in the southern part of the county. Another priority is finishing up County Road 30. We'd like to see that paved all the way to 92. So there's a connection, hard surface on the west end of the county all the way down, so you could go to Lawrence from Easton.
There is traffic congestion at Fort Leavenworth's main gate, 4th and Metropolitan, and along County Road 5 during normal rush hour. What portion of the burden for maintaining these roads, if any, should Fort Leavenworth bear?
Well, I would like to see them bear, as much as we can require them. I mean, I'm definitely in favor of putting the issue on the table before them. I don't know if there's a legal way to force it.
What are 3 strengths or experiences that you want the voters to know about you?
Well, I like to help people, and that's been my focus on the commission. I've focused on doing my job to where I represent people and I'm able to help them in individual things. And I've had a lot of success in doing some of that. I think part of that is openness and transparency. And I know when I first ran, people said that they were really upset about the Tyson issue and that they didn't feel like the government had been open and transparent. They just kind of plopped it down on them. And they didn't have a voice. Mm-hmm. And I think one thing I'm good at is communicating. And I've done a lot of town hall meetings. We've done community breakfasts. We had the Secretary of Commerce come to Tonganoxie. We've done door-to-door conversations. We've done I write articles for the paper to try to communicate these things, and just trying to be open with people and not focused on. I'm not really focused on the government side of it, but focused on the people side. And the way I look at that is that I'm your commissioner and I represent you to the government of Leavenworth County. I'm not the representative of the government to you as a citizen. I am your voice to them. And that's the way I look at it. I do not consider myself the voice of the Leavenworth County government. Although when you do get into this position, you realize that's the way people look at you. But the way I look at the job is to be representing people.
Okay, that concludes our questions. Thank you for running for office and sharing your perspectives with us. Both candidates were invited to have an interview, and as of this recording, the write-in candidate has not accepted the invitation. Finally, I'll give you the last word for a wrap-up.
Okay, Sherri, thank you, and thank Rural Leavenworth, Inc. I have been thoroughly blessed to be able to serve in this capacity for the last 3.5 years. I would like to go on and work on some of the things we've started, work on enhancing economic development, work on bringing more transparency. I support even more openness. I am going to, if I am reelected, I'm going to push to get the work sessions aired live, just like the sessions of the Open Board of Commissioners. I feel like a lot of things are happening there that are not being seen. And I think the more you shine the light on government, the more productive government is, because it's open. Mm-hmm. And like I said, my 3 top priorities: lowering your property taxes, economic development, transparency, and efficiency in government. I'll continue to do that. Every year since 2019, that's what I've stood for. And on the issue of transparency, let me just say a word. I'm running for commissioner. I ran in the primary. I was nominated by the party. I won 75% of the vote in the primary. And then it comes about just a few weeks ago, and a gentleman has decided to run a write-in campaign. And that's fine. Everybody has the right to run for office. But what people don't have the right to do, and this is where it gets the transparency part, is to run a campaign and not tell us anything about anything you stand for or what your issues are. Because I'd be more than happy to talk and meet with this gentleman about anything, but I haven't heard from him. In 3.5 years on the commission, I've never heard from him. He hasn't attended any county commission meetings. He hasn't come to any of our work sessions on the budget. We haven't seen him, but now all of a sudden we're running for county commissioner. And I really think when you look at all these issues we've talked about today, that it's critical that we have a conversation with the voters and with people to know exactly where we stand. I've been telling people where I have stood on the issues all along. Sometimes you agree with me, sometimes you don't agree with me, but you know where I stand. I think it's disconcerting to me as far as the transparency issue that we're not being transparent on this. But like I said, I am a family man, locomotive engineer. I have appreciated being allowed to serve on the commission, and I will continue to represent the values and the things I've stood for all this time, and even to be more open. And thank you very much.
Thanks again.